What's up, Dr. Wright? Welcome to my video reflection response. I'm Raul. Probably don't remember me, but I used to make a lot of stupid faces in class, and I probably turned in some pretty bad papers. So sorry about that. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about my experience in your class, Rhetoric 101, and hopefully I can answer all these questions. Based on your experience in class, what is your takeaway? What have you learned as a result of this experience? In the beginning, I thought it was gonna be really hard, and I wasn't gonna do well. But based on my experience, for me, I learned that writing isn't actually that hard. I learned that writing is a process. For example, there's reading, there's research, there's analysis, there's note taking, and I learned that writing is about, for me, it's about convincing the other person to look at your view. How will you use this new learning? So from all this that I learned, I'm hoping to actually take Rhetoric 102. I think it'll help a lot. Well, obviously, because it's more writing, and I think I'm gonna be able to use it in other classes too. Like for example, history. In history class, I have to write essays too. Like I have my last history class had 3 essays, so I think those skills will obviously transfer to my writing, to the other classes that have me do essays. Also, since writing was about convincing people, I think it could transfer to other classes such as speaking. I want to take speaking, so I think those skills will somehow transfer, and I think that'll help me understand what those classes are about. What did you find frustrating? One thing at first I found frustrating was the reading. I didn't really like the reading. I was towards like essay 3. I think the reading got really, it got heavy. There was a bunch of reading, there was a bunch of handouts, and for me that was something I couldn't handle at the time, I guess. Another thing that was frustrating was the research. For like my last essays for rhetorical analysis and literary analysis, those essays require so much research, and sometimes it's hard to find the research too. Like you can't find much information about it, especially for contemporary stories. That was frustrating. That could have been frustrating. Another thing I found frustrating was anytime I walked away from my essay, like the next day I'd forget what I was supposed to be writing about. Like I'd have to research everything again, like look over it so I could remember what I was trying to write, what I was trying to get to. How did you manage or overcome the frustrating parts? The reading part, I to be honest, I started liking it, so I really didn't have to overcome that. I just started liking it. The thing about the research was that it was frustrating, but what made it easier was choosing a topic that you kind of liked. So choosing something that you wanted to write about. Like for example, my last essay, it was a literary essay, and it was kind of boring researching it. But when I chose how to write it, how I wanted to write it, it got really interesting, and I actually wanted to keep working on it. And research was actually kind of fun. So try to find something that interests you. The walking away problem, like when I walk away from my essay and I kind of forgot. I mean, I really can't do anything about that. I just had to take like better notes, I think. So when I come back to where I was going, I just gotta write down a lot. I gotta write down my ideas. Gotta have better brainstorming. I have to write more notes. Discuss what you learned about yourself as a writer in the process of writing this essay. For example, what part of this process did you find most challenging? Did you try anything new, like getting a critical reading of your draft or outlining your draft in order to revise it? As a writer, I'm starting to understand what makes a good essay. I'm starting to understand how to actually convince someone of my view. Like one thing I did find really challenging was the research. Like for a literary essay, it takes a lot of research because you have to research like the author. You got to research his background. You got to learn about him. You got to learn about the story. You got to learn about history about it. You gotta learn a lot about it, and that's a really challenging thing to do. You gotta learn these things so you could actually add more to your essay. One new thing I did try is actually asking for tutor help. I never did that before, but what I did was I went on BrainFuse. I actually asked the people for help, the live tutors, and they were really helpful. I mean, some of them can be vague at times, but that's okay. I mean, you could just ask them for a transfer, and they'll a lot of people will actually want to help you. They'll give you some good ideas and give you some good feedback real quick, so you could change your essay on the fly. If you were to give advice to a friend who was about to write a literacy analysis essay, what would you say? Some advice I'd give to a friend on literacy analysis essay would be some general help would be don't procrastinate. I mean, that makes it way worse because then you have little time to work with, and it's a big essay, so you need a lot of time. Always ask for help from your teacher and from tutors and anyone that can help you, because it's a hard thing to understand what it needs for it to be a good essay. So I mean, asking someone for help it helps a lot. As for the analysis, I think it's important to pick a good story, something interesting that'll actually make you want to write about it. Choose one with lots of info. For like example, info on the author, info on the story, maybe something with history you could learn a lot about and actually talk about in your essay. That'll make your essay way more easier to write. But I also think you really need to understand what the requirements are and what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to write about. For example, this essay was very opinionative, so I could really write, on my opinion, my view on what the story was telling me, and that's what made it way easier for me, because then I could write what I want to write about. I don't have to write an essay on something I don't like, which would make the essay way harder, because then I had to research on it. And that helps me because now I'm writing something that I want to write about, and now it makes it easier because I actually want to write the essay. All right, so hopefully I answered those questions pretty effectively. I know I called you a hard ass, but I didn't mean that in a bad way. I actually meant that in a good way, because I actually like teachers like that don't just give you your grade just to move on. I really don't like that. I don't think you will do that. I think you're very critical, and I really like that. So I'm planning to take your next class, Reddit 102, and hopefully I can see you there. And thanks for teaching us in this semester. Goodbye.